Hello and welcome to the Sales Development Revolution series. In this episode, we really dive into what it takes to train and manage SDRs across multiple channels.
And this is no easy task because managers often have to train so many different types of people in the SDR role. Some SDRs are aces on the phone. Others are great at email or social selling. But what if they're phone averse? What if they're weak in a specific channel?
You know, AJ, that's a really great point. You know, many managers run into challenges, especially with younger SDRs, becoming more comfortable on the phone, while seasoned SDRs tend to struggle to adopt more modern channels like social selling and in video.
Exactly. Managers need to empower their team's strengths, improve their weaknesses, and really encourage SDRs to use multiple channels together to help achieve results.
More great points again, AJ. And who better to talk about all of this than Collin Waldrop? He's the sales development manager at Salesloft, which is one of the fastest growing companies in the sales development technology space.
Yeah, Collin's great. And his perspective as a former SDR and current SDR manager sheds a great deal of light on building proficiency within the various channels that modern SDRs leverage, including a story of his journey from poor college student to SDR manager, and the steps he had to take to ensure success at every level.
Wow, that's a lot to cover. Don't take our word for it. See for yourselves. To get us started, I've always been interested, where you got your start in sales development. I mean, really, out of all the jobs, why be an SDR?
So I think from my journey to now, it all started in college. And so when I started college, I actually started as a biology major with a goal to be in physical therapy or a physical therapist. So I have a really unique knee. So my kneecap stays dislocated. So it stays on the side of my leg at all times.
What?
I had a knee replacement, a full knee replacement at age 17.
Oh my God.
It didn't fix it. And so there were a lot of these things in high school where like no doctor, like the doctor for the Falcons, like all these big wigs, like the biggest knee doctor in Birmingham worked on my knee and no one ever figured it out. And so when I started college, like I felt like my purpose in life was to become a physical therapist and fix my own knee. And so 3 years in of studying flowers and biology and seeing other injuries and not doing too well at it, I actually did the typical thing you do as a bio major and you transfer over to finance. And so I liked finance, but I also I lost this entire purpose. Like I came to college and I was like, I'm gonna figure out how to fix my knee. And so I had lost kind of my purpose. And so me and my buddies are moving into an apartment on move-in day. And there's one lady in Dahlonega, and she owns pretty much a monopoly of apartments. And they are very disorganized. So there's thousands of apartments and they don't own a single computer. So they're all handwritten. So things are absolutely just all over the place. So we are in our kitchen, kind of waiting on her to clean the apartment, and we're having a good time in the kitchen. And just randomly, she's in our living room and she just quits her job. So she picks up the carpet cleaner. She says, I'm done with this. And she walks out of the apartment. I lived about 20 minutes away from college. And so I called the lady who owns the complexes and I said, hey, I don't know if you heard, your carpet cleaner just quit her job. I've got my own steam cleaner, so I'll just take care of our carpet, no problems. She said, thank you. And so I started cleaning our carpet and it looked pretty damn good to do it myself. And so I called her back and I was like, hey, it's move-in day. I'm sure you have a lot of people who need their carpets cleaned. I have my own carpet cleaner. I just cleaned our carpet and it looks pretty good. Do you want me to clean the rest? And so that was the start of this journey of me running my own carpet cleaning business in college. And so I think that is what, when I started thinking about careers, like I realized the importance of just making that one call of like, hey, I can solve this for you. Like I can be that guy for you. And so for me, it was just looking for the place who claimed they were going to be the best in Atlanta to help me in a sales career. That's where I landed at Salesloft. That's where I caught my interest of SDR. On a Friday night, we would have a good time. Saturday morning, I would bring in my carpet cleaner and clean up all the dirty beer everywhere. So I'd already lost all my dignity. So I was like, why not cold call people for a living? I'll just annoy people.
Dude, that is an absolutely insane story from start to finish, how it went from you not having a normal need to owning a carpet cleaning business. Like that is, and just like being able to weave a story like that is so part of the sales development role too. You were born for that. Yeah, you didn't realize it at the time, but you were born to be in a sales development role with a story like that. That's nuts.
Yeah, I love it. I owe so much to SDR work as well. Like, whatever I was going to commit to was probably going to involve hard work, and I don't think I've ever been more challenged than being an SDR. So I don't know what I would do if I started my career any other way. So super thankful for my time as an SDR.
Maybe you'd have a regular knee. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm hoping somebody continued the passion that I would have had and figured out how to fix my knee. It hasn't happened yet.
I wanted to point out something that you brought up, and definitely want to maybe focus some of the discussion around that. But you got in touch with the person, the landlady is sort of all of the buildings via phone, and you reached out to her via the phone about the carpet cleaning. And that's something that I know I really wanted to touch on today in the video, is that the phone is really like the best channel to get in touch with someone and really leverage any kind of information you would have to solve a problem like you were talking about. And that's something that you preach a lot, is that you want people to get on the phone with you so you can help solve a problem versus some other kind of channel. What made you sort of come to that realization? Was it because of the experiences that you had sort of early on in your career, or is it something you kind of always knew that the phone would be the tool for you?
Yeah, I mean, one, there are people who naturally are just better on the phone. For me, phone was a strong suit during my SDR, like the ability to just be comfortable while making a call. I think that's something that can be unique, but for me, it all stems I think phone is the most powerful channel. So I'm going to talk about a lot of channels today. Phone is by far the most powerful. Every other channel is just what can make the phone stronger for me. So that's really the whole, the reason I preach in incorporating other channels into your sales approach is just to make the phone stronger for you. What can make that phone call when someone says hello on the other end stronger? What can lead to higher conversions on the phone as well? And it takes other channels to do that.
That's awesome. And I think, most SDRs would agree with you that the phone is the way to go. And I think the challenge really for managers is moving away from the phone and getting these SDRs who they're banging out these calls day after day after day. And then you're like, okay, we need to make an adjustment. We need to add a new channel, or we need to start spending more time on a channel. And so how can you get an SDR to leverage other channels so that they can really empower their skill at the phone?
Yeah. So, results speak louder than anything. So I think when someone takes that step of sending that video and seeing the ammo, not only the reply rates, but the ammo that another channel gives you, there's this jealousy of they just made their life so much easier. Meanwhile, I've got to make X amount of calls to catch up to where they are when they just got an email reply or they have this one lead somewhere. And I think to what you spoke on first, managers, getting them to step away from the phone, I think it really does come down to this fear of every moment I spend away from the phone, how do I measure that it's worth it? There's this fear, and I think there's this company called Inside Out. And so what they do is they just study sales cadences. So they'll bring on a company, they'll run 20 different cadences, and then they'll bring back the results of here's all the different cadences we tried for your team. And it's funny enough, they have one, it's called the social cadence, and it's a top performing cadence. And it's 9 LinkedIn touches before an email or phone call is ever made. But their conversation rate goes up 34% by building that relationship on the front end. Now, me as a manager, I preach channels, and it even scares me to think about my rep spending 9 days building a relationship over LinkedIn before they make that phone call. And so there is that inherent fear of, if they step away from the phone, how do I prove that it's worth that time? But I would counter that with, your first couple of phone calls are going to have your highest connect rate, unless you're buying new numbers for every call. That's expensive endeavor. But every other call you're making, you're going down in connect rate. And so for me, I would just ask, by that 10th call, and you're looking at an extremely low connect rate, is that what you really want to depend on getting a hold of your prospect on? Is that the channel you want to lean on to get a conversation started? how else are you manipulating your the structure of your process to make sure a conversation happens? Because just pounding the phone, like the same prospect, dialing over and over and over, doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think that's one sort of extreme end of the spectrum where you have someone who is really phone heavy and they are making a ton of dials, like upwards of 80 to 100 dials a day. There is also another end of the spectrum where you have SDRs who sort of suffer from like a technology fatigue, where they have a bunch of different tools at their disposal that they are using, but they aren't leveraging the phone as effectively because of that. And some SDRs, I've seen it, are even scared to pick up the phone just because they know they can hide behind email or some other kind of enablement tool. How are you sort of working with teams to maybe more effectively get them to use the phone and leverage that channel, or even through like the training process, making sure that it's sort of embedded early on that this is something you should be using and you don't have to or should hide behind other technology to get in touch with people?
Yeah, and so I think you nailed it. I think it does stem, like some SDRs, they maybe see success over a different channel. And they are really just afraid of the phone. And so they really lean on that channel to compensate for their fear of the phone. And so I think it's management's job to be able to pick up on when a rep is genuinely afraid to make phone calls. And two, it's management's job, like if you have that situation, it's like, how do I make phone calls easier for this rep? Like, for me, my highest connect rate on any phone call I ever had as an SDR was after I sent a video to a prospect, because that was my most comfortable talk track. I could set aside an hour and I could only make calls where I'm following up on videos. And every single time I'm just like, hey, it's Collin over at Salesloft. I actually sent you that video yesterday afternoon. Didn't expect to win any Oscars. I was just curious if you got a chance to see it. Whether they saw that video or not, like it's a bonus if they saw it. If they didn't, then I'm on in my call like, hey, either way, the reason I sent you that video and the reason I'm making this call today, and I'm on to my talk track, I was comfortable making that call. And so it's figuring out, where can I make you comfortable with those calls? How can I build this strategy and this process where you're more comfortable with that? Because once you start doing good, your fear of the phone is going to go away.
Yeah, I feel like success is really like the main breaker of any kind of barrier like that. Once you do see any kind of traction with something, like in your instance, video to then phone, ingraining that into your memory and sort of understanding this is how I get success, like you won't be nervous anymore. You can't be nervous at that point if you're seeing success, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're booking meeting after meeting on the phone, like it's hard to be afraid of the phone. Like the phone's making you money at that point, but it's when you're not seeing the success over the phone. You're afraid of either being in front of your peers. Like the biggest mistake, I think, like one of the biggest mistakes managers make is allowing their reps to make calls away from their desk. Like when they're training, they don't get comfortable failing in front of their peers right away. Then as a manager, you just set them up for failure because they've got comfortable making mistakes in their own little corner. That's something I learned early on. I was one of the reps who I was good on the phone, but I was afraid to not be good on the phone in front of my peers. Like there were calls where like I would say the most absurd things and people would just be like, I can't believe he gets away with saying that on the phone. And I almost built this personality where like I didn't want to make mistakes on the phone. And I can remember my CEO, I was in my own little nook making calls one day. And I know this is a little bit off topic. I was in my own little nook. The CEO walks past me and I just hear my name. He pokes around the corner. He says, hey, are you on the phone? I say, no, not right now. He sits down beside me and says, hey, you're a new rep. I see you sitting over here all alone. Like you're afraid to make phone calls. I said, no, I don't think I'm afraid to make phone calls. Like, I mean, there's a lot of background noise. Like, it's like as a prospect, I wouldn't like it if I, heard all this background noise. He's like, Collin, like by yourself, like, come on, you have a fear of the phone. Like the best way, like you're going to cripple yourself for growth if you don't get over there in the pit and make calls with your peers. And it's one of the best lessons I've ever learned.
That is a really good point. Yeah, I think that you hear a lot of talk today about like sort of the benefits and cons of like an open office and sort of how a lot of people who probably are in the sales will really enjoy it because you can bounce ideas off of one another. You can hear each other. You can fail in front of one another and learn from it, but it's not for everyone. Obviously, if you're like an engineer, I'm guessing an open office would be awful. But similarly, off track, when I was in the SDR role, I was in my own individual little cubicle and no one could hear me. And it was awful for like the first month because I would fail horribly, but not know it. And then when we moved to a more open office structure, I would fail in front of other people and realize it and be like, I've been doing this wrong for like a month. And it forces you to sort of like relearn everything you were trained on, which is just a drain not only on the SDR because of burnout, but also on the management team, because then they have to kind of divert resources again to training that person more effectively and getting them comfortable with the idea of calling in front of people and sort of failing and stuff. So it's a whole vicious cycle when you get stuff like that going on.
Yeah. And probably my last point on cold calls in front of everybody, but like also I see sales as like almost like golf. Like you hit a great shot and all of a sudden the next shots are incredible. Like you hit a bad shot and then you let it get in your head and like you hit bad shots over and over again. Like there's this hype to sales when like people are booking demos, everybody's booking demos. Like when you hear nothing or when you're on a dry spell, you're just going to continue on that dry spell and letting other people on the phones, hearing other people constantly making videos. Like there's someone saying a talk track at all times during the day. And like, you're just constantly picking up on things. And so getting away from that, like you're just doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of going back on topic a little bit. So utilizing different channels to more effectively leverage phone, and it brought it up, but like being sort of in an open office and hearing everybody use different channels, same talk track, but like using video or LinkedIn or email or whatever. What do you find to be specifically some of the channels that really work to effectively sort of transition a prospect from that channel to the phone, and maybe some like best practices around those channels so that other people can sort of take what you're saying and implement it in some capacity?
Yeah. So I already hit on video. So video I think is a big one. Because not only is it the reply, but when I have a hot lead, there's actually someone who posted on LinkedIn today, like if someone opens an email a lot, like do you reference it on a phone call? Like for me, for videos, like if I send you a video and you send it to all your colleagues, like 20 plus opens, it allows me to follow up on that phone call, be like, hey, I saw I got like 30 opens on that video I sent you. I thought, one, I either struck some interest, or two, I've got a whole bunch of people laughing at me. I was curious what it was. Like
usually the latter for me, but yeah.
And so it's the analytics around the videos, like seeing if people engage, how much of the video they watch. If they watch 100%, then you must have caught their attention. Outside of video, so like LinkedIn, we have an SDR who, like last month, since they came out with LinkedIn video, so she had this own algorithm where she would connect with them first, or she would just look at their profile. And then if they looked back at her profile, then she would connect with them. So not until they looked back at her profile would she connect. So then she would connect. And if he connected, or if they connected back with her, then she would send like a message, just like not really a pitch or anything, just introducing herself. And then from there, she would set up a phone call because she like took that small amount of time to build a rapport. And so we've actually built it into our strategy of 4 steps using LinkedIn of that exact algorithm before you actually ever try to send a message to them. And so I think that's a really powerful channel as well. And then I think a good email it's kind of the unsung hero of sales as well. Like it's like a lot of people, I guess, get cold calls, but it's nothing compared to the amount of just spammy emails you get in your inbox. And there's nothing more annoying than like going through and deleting emails. Like I don't even care about your product. If you just send an email where you've invested in me, it's just like, thank you. Like I'm just happy you're not like the rest. And so the unsung hero is like sending an email where just like a small portion is just letting them know like, hey, I as a sales rep, like know exactly why I'm reaching out to you. There's a reason I'm reaching out to you specifically. Here's why. So.
I care. I promise you.
Exactly. It goes so far.
Yeah.
Like recruiting's the worst. Like how many LinkedIn emails do you get from recruiters trying to recruit you? And like they're all people that were like insert company, like dynamic field, insert company. It's like the one recruiter, like I'm not looking for a job. Like you send me something to be like, hey, like Collin, like it's like saw that you went to UNG or like says something about me. I was like, thank you so much. Like
yeah, even like the smallest little thing like that. You took 4 seconds to check out my education history on LinkedIn, but that's 4 more seconds than anybody else has taken today. So automatically a leg up.
And then when you talk to me on the phone, all of a sudden you have a leg up on everybody else cold calling. I've somewhere said thank you.
What about maybe some of the more non-business channels? Like I know we've talked a lot about obviously LinkedIn and email, but what about like Facebook and Twitter? Do you ever really leverage anything like that to get someone on the phone? Because I know those are sort of emerging a little bit more now with the advent of like social selling and really effectively leveraging those channels to get in touch with someone. But specifically to not just get in touch with them, but then to get them on a phone call. Have you ever played around with that?
Yeah. So I think like so this is for outbound like prospecting. So of course I strongly recommend if you're like building a brand and you're like on those, like, let people know you're out there or something, like, of course, but like as far as like reaching out, Facebook messaging somebody, I think there is a line prospects draw on like their personal life and their business. I think LinkedIn is a great dynamic that kind of ties them together. Like, they're sharing their thoughts on LinkedIn, but it's business oriented. But yeah, I would say I draw the line at like messaging over Facebook or Instagram or like something like that. Maybe there's an industry out there where like that's the channel that their prospects are available on. Like if you're in kind of this modern, maybe like a pop company, like you're reaching out to individuals, like maybe so. But like for our business and a lot of others, I would say that is the line where like I wouldn't be messaging people over Facebook, Instagram, things like that.
I know I would get kind of weirded out if I could Facebook message from somebody, but at the same time, I think I might have to respect them a little bit because no one's really done that for me, at least. I've never received, any kind of like cold email or anything through that channel. So it would be like the novelty of it, I feel like would start off pretty high and then it would get old really quickly and then I would never touch them again. So
yeah. And not to say like you can use them to make your other channels more powerful. Like the channels you are using, like we use Twitter all the time. So like I'll talk to my reps, and like when you're doing research on a company, it's systematic. So like you're looking at any Salesforce, like past opportunities, anything you have in Salesforce, you're looking at that person's on LinkedIn or their LinkedIn to find anything you can about them as a person or their company. You're looking on their company's career page to see like when you're hiring a role that we help, how can we help them? But then we look at Twitter and we say like, if we can't find any of that, are they a Boston Red Sox fan or like, are they a Braves fan? Like something personal that they're attached to, because I can put together some quick email about, Mookie Betts and like make them read it and then make my email channel stronger by the research I did on Twitter or something. So to that aspect, I use Twitter all the time.
Nice. Yeah, just augmenting other channels. It makes sense. Yeah. Cause I feel like Twitter is kind of moving into that businessy sense where a lot of people obviously use it for personal stuff, but Twitter presences for organizations are huge. And that's where they conduct a lot of their sort of external facing marketing communication. So leveraging that through other channels makes a lot of sense versus using it as a direct selling tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So I wanted to loop back to something that you had said earlier, Collin, and the core of it is that measuring success for activities outside of the phone can be very difficult and very ambiguous. And the challenge is that there are so many channels out there, and every channel that you decide to add to an SDR's process is something new that's going to affect how they manage their time. So with that in mind, how can managers and trainers mitigate risking too much time in a certain channel and really help define where an SDR should be spending their time?
Yeah. So one, you have to be measuring, like you can't go based on just like meetings or so like LinkedIn messages may be crazy powerful. We need to have them, but like you're probably not going to book as many LinkedIn like meetings over LinkedIn message as phone. And so any manager would see that and be like, well, if we're doing more over phone, why don't we just double down on phone and get rid of LinkedIn? Like we're sourcing 10 meetings over phone for every 2 over LinkedIn. But you have to be able to measure the impact on the process overall. So like if we insert today we rolled out our new cadence with those 4 LinkedIn steps in it. So for us, it's going to be tracking, like, does this drive down our time to conversation with our prospects? If so, then LinkedIn is working. Like it's allowing us to create this relationship and it's well worth it. If it doesn't, then are my reps spinning their wheels? And so, you have to be able to track the end result, like the result of the impact on the overall strategy you're running. Like, and when you manipulate something, like when we change up these steps, does it impact when we have a conversation with that prospect?
And how do you, sorry, Greyson, I was just going to ask, how did you you mentioned, time to conversation and sort of driving that down. Are there any other key metrics that you are looking at across different channels that really help you understand how it is impacting that overall sort of strategy and cadence?
Yeah. So, I mean, internally we track all the steps. So we'll associate it with the Salesforce field of like what type of step it was. And so one really cool project we did over here was we put together a composite rep, which was just made up of our 5 top performers. And we said in the past month and a half, what did they average daily on each of these like types of touches? So what did they average on the videos they sent, like LinkedIn? Like what did they average on emails and calls and like even talk time and this? And we put together kind of this physical example of like, if our top 5 performers were this, like we put all their numbers together for this one composite like rep, what is that perfect rep? So for us, it's like measuring, it's stack ranking everybody against that composite rep and be like, hey, like this is what the standard should be based on all the types of touches. And so you're high in this area, low in this area. How is it impacting talk time or connect rate, things like that?
That's really cool. I like that idea.
Yeah.
And so you've taken this, I guess, like systematic and more really process-driven approach to figuring out how to effectively leverage these channels, get people on the phone overall. How do you think that translates, I guess, sort of like the training process now? If you're an organization that is maybe inundated with a couple of different tools that they're using, they aren't seeing the best results from them, but they know that they want to take what they have already and then optimize that to get their reps to have more phone conversations. How would you recommend that they sort of go about creating some kind of process like you have in place or something similar and making it sustainable and scalable? Because I feel like that's really the big issue, is that a lot of people understand what they should be doing, but implementing it and then scaling it out is always the difficult part of that.
Yeah. For me, I think it takes more management buy-in than rep buy-in. So I think when you give an SDR, just like if you're just calling, like you're limited to like that being your skill set. When you allow reps to make the most of their research and you allow them to be creative and you allow them to be strategic, like I think they honestly are more invested in their job because like they're allowing to like really differentiate themselves from all their other coworkers rather than just call. And so rep buy-in, I think the more channels you have, like reps like it because it's allowing them to be more strategic. They're more bought in on their job. They think they're making more of an impact. They don't just think they're making more of an impact, but they are making more of an impact. So it is the manager buy-in. And as far as the manager buy-in goes, like I really would paint the picture of like, do you think you're leaning too heavily on one channel? If so, what's your conversion rate for every step of that channel that you send? Like it was MIT, I think in 2007 did the study, and it took like 4 touches to get a hold of prospects. So 2 emails, 2 phone calls, like you're talking to your prospect. And like anybody in sales today knows like that is not the case anymore. I think year release that it takes on average 16 touches to get a hold of a cold outbound prospect. And at some point of that, if you're leaning on one channel, you have to feel like you're spinning your wheels. Like 16 touches of one channel, like you're spinning your wheels. And so, I talked to you guys about this before, but multi-channel comes down to one scenario for me. And it's this scene in the movie Focus. And it has it's the movie with Will Smith. And it's the scene, he's sitting at this football game and he knows there's this degenerate gambler sitting beside him. So they end up getting in this gambling war. They're making bets on what's happening in the football game. So I bet you they're going to pass the ball and not run it. I bet you that team's going to get an interception. I bet you they're going to get a touchdown. So bet after bet, Will Smith loses them all. And so he's walking out. At the very end, he turns around. He looks at the degenerate gambler. He says, hey, one more bet. He's like, take these binoculars, look down at the field, choose any number player you want, and I bet $2 million that I will guess that same player. And so the degenerate gambler looks down at the field, and he chooses number 55. And so he gives the binoculars to Will Smith. Will Smith looks down, and guess what number he chooses? 55. So the gambler goes absolutely berserk, thinking it's like this magic trick. But what he didn't know is that Will Smith had planted 55 in front of this guy all day. So his cab number was 55. The chandeliers in his hotel were in the shape of 55. Everything around him was 55. So given the opportunity, he was always going to choose 55. And that is how you get people like to be comfortable with this multi-channel approach of like, like get in front of your prospect in the channel they prefer. So like for me, I get hit up by robocalls so much. Like I want to take cold calls, like, cause I want to see how other people cold call, but it just doesn't happen because every single one's an insurance, like this robo dial. Like
on a cruise.
Comment on my LinkedIn or something, and then I happen to pick up the phone and I recognize your name from a LinkedIn comment. I'm having a conversation with you. Like you engage on the channel I prefer, like the one I spend time on trying to build my brand. Like I appreciate that. And so it really is the idea of like, are you like subconsciously getting in front of that prospect? So when they say hello on the other end of the phone, there's already this pre-existing relationship where they know you from somewhere and it's easier to have a conversation. And when you start looking at your call metrics, you know, from the first call where you may have like this 10 to 14% connect rate, you know, our low volume rep is like at a 14% connect rate now, which is insane, but she's making those strategic calls. But for every call, if that's your only channel, for every call you're making, when you get down to that 16th touch, you're down to the people who will never answer a cold call. They are determined not to answer a cold call, or your reps are spinning their wheels on a number that doesn't actually work, or it's a gatekeeper that is over and over telling them that they can't pass them over. Like they're spinning their wheels. And so you have to be comfortable leaning on some other channel to get in front of them. And the more the merrier in that case.
That is absolute gold. Awesome, Collin. So to kind of wrap it up here, you know, how can people learn more about you if they want to go check out either Salesloft or all of your activities on LinkedIn?
Yeah, for me, I think I gave away the secret sauce of how to get a hold of me. But, you know, I do invest in LinkedIn. You know, I don't post all too much. I sit on a lot of my posts for a long time and think about them. If for over a week they're impressing me in my own mind, I'll post it. But I really do. Like you reach out to me over LinkedIn or keep up with me on LinkedIn. Happy to grow my network. Happy to network over LinkedIn. I love doing that. But yeah, any channel, I'm just happy to engage with people. I love doing stuff like this. And so I should be pretty easy to reach.
Yeah. Get them on LinkedIn and then give them a call because like you said, that's the secret sauce, people.
Exactly.
Awesome, Collin. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this little video. And I think we're good.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me.